So this week I got a clergy news update from the Archdiocese of Washington. I found out that this week, starting this weekend, is Anti-Pornography Awareness Week. So I can't say I've ever preached an entire sermon on this topic, but I want to do so this weekend. This is a problem. We all know that. I don't have to spend a lot of time talking about that. But it's an unprecedented time in the history of the human race, where we have such ease of access so affordably and in the anonymity of our homes. So yes, we've always had a problem, the human race, controlling our sexuality and ordering it to God's design and God's ways. But this is uniquely challenging in our own time. This addiction to pornography is worse than heroin, according to real heroin addicts who are in recovery and say, this is even harder to overcome. Kids between the ages of 8 and 11 are being exposed to it on average. Usually they find it by accident on the internet. Okay? This is a massive problem in our world, so we have to preach about this. We have to deal with this. So I want to do so in this homily, at least a little bit, introduce the topic here, because it's a great big fat lie. A nothing burger, like all sin is, ultimately it doesn't satisfy, it doesn't fortify, it doesn't nourish us. And there's a tremendous diminishment of our humanity, of our dignity when we engage in this. Those who make videos and audio material and so on diminish their dignity and dignity as well. But it's not like a victimless crime, for those of us in our homes or workplace or wherever to act out with these materials, because that diminishes our dignity and humanity as well. Martin Luther King famously argued, it's not just the slaves whose humanity is diminished and dignity degraded. It's also the slave owner. That's a really brilliant argument by Martin Luther King. So it's a lie. We have to expose this lie so that we really, truly, from the depths of our being, reject it. We don't want this in our families, in our homes, in our lives. Because we see through it that it is a mirage, just another mirage the devil puts out there for us. The world, the flesh, and the devil give us this. And we run after it and we wind up with handfuls of sand. Okay? There's nothing there but vanity. Oh, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. The author of Ecclesiastes famously said, Vanus. It's where we get the word vanity. The word vanus in Latin means emptiness, nothingness. Vanity means there's nothing there. Where we get the word vanish, okay? Nothingness. So all idols, ultimately, all vices, all these things we run after, like poor Zacchaeus here, who curiously his name comes from the word purity in Hebrew, zakat, okay? So it's interesting to think of Zacchaeus here as emblematic of the human race running after idols, filling our belly with that which does not satisfy, eating out of dumpsters that the world has us eating out of, poisonous, toxic things, getting a bellyache. They come to the church like a field hospital. Pope Francis famously used that analogy for the church. I love that, because our Lord is the ultimate hospital surgeon. He is a physician, a divine physician, more than he's a judge. Yes, our Lord's going to come and judge all things. But ultimately, even judgment, even punishment, is an aspect of healing. Ultimately, the whole of our Catholic faith, the whole of salvation history is about healing. He wants to heal us. So he's not just writing down on a ledger board everything we've done wrong and everything we've done right, and that's how we're judged in the end, and all of redemption is about a courtroom. No, it's about a hospital. It's about a doctor's office. It's about the divine physician. He looks up at Zacchaeus And he feels compassion for him. Mercy, pity. When he sees human beings sin, what does he see? And what should we see when we sin and see other people sin? We see people hurting themselves, like the father watching the prodigal son drive out the driveway with a cloud of dust in his Trans Am, off headed for the great debauch to squander the inheritance on loose living. And the father just knows he's just going to fill his belly with all that stuff and get the biggest bellyache. And there he is looking at the pigs. And he wants to get in there shoulder to shoulder with the pigs and fill his stomach on these husks. Okay? The father knows, and he patiently waits for this to happen. And before the son comes to himself, Luke 15:17, I think it might be my favorite verse in the whole Bible, that phrase. But when he came to himself, when he came to his senses, what brought him to his senses? The pain and emptiness and despair he felt, desolation, filling his belly with that which does not satisfy. That's what drives him back to the Father. So I look at Zacchaeus now. He's hungry. He's lost. And our Lord said as much, that he came to seek and to save what is lost. That poor guy was lost. And he knew it. And he ran ahead of all the people and climbed a tree to see our Lord, because he knew this guy has something I want. There's something here that I'm missing. The way, the truth, and the life. What the church offers the world is good news about human sexuality, that it comes with consequences and requires responsibility to manage our generative powers. It's a very complex thing, human beings. We can't simply extract sexual values from them and enjoy them for their own sake. They're attached to persons, reality. God's ways are ordered to reality. The life of virtue is ordered towards reality, real things. That's where the challenge lies in a certain sense. All of salvation history is about reality therapy. Stop running after castles in the air, vanities and idols. Sink your teeth into something real and nourishing for you. The Creator made us, manufactured us. He's the manufacturer. He knows how his creature's life is to run right. He wrote the owner's manual. If I put a sticker on there that says unleaded fuel only, when you're standing at the pump, don't put some cheap counterfeit in there. Don't try to fill your tank with diesel fuel. You're going to gunk up the engine. Your life's not going to run right. It's good news what we're offering the world. A whole comprehensive vision we have of the human person and our dignity. We know who we are, where we came from, where we're going, what our whole destiny is. We know what our identity is. The world does not. So they degrade and diminish their own humanity, their own dignity. So we have to stand by the truth. The truth will set us free, our Lord said, if you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples. And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. We stand by the truth, what it means to be a human person, the value and dignity of human life, and the value and dignity of this gift of our sexuality. Now, people get addicted to this stuff. And how do we extract ourselves from this? I want to spend a little time talking about that, because you got to have hope. People are caught in this wheel, like a mouse running around in a little exercise wheel in a cage. They can't get out of this vortex of relapse and relapse, resolution, relapse, resolution, relapse, again and again and again. It goes on for years with people who get sucked into this. So how do we get out of it? All right, I'm going to throw a picture out there for you that I think is helpful. All right, anybody here seen the movie Castaway. All right, Tom Hanks, FedEx employee, plane crash. He's the only survivor, winds up on an island in the Pacific for 4.5 years. He has to survive on this island. I like this image because it kind of paints a picture of an addiction. Somebody's stuck on an island, isolated there, and they feel helpless. He tries to get off the island. He's got this little dinghy and 2 oars, and he tries to go out there, and he gets hammered by the surf. Like ringing in, hemming in this whole island are these successively bigger, progressively bigger waves, and he just gets absolutely slam dunked when he tries to go out there on his own power. Till after 4.5 years, sitting there one day, and here he hears a clanking sound, looks down, a piece of plastic, heavy gauge plastic, washes up on the beach, and he's like, hey, I can make that into a sail. So then he creates this raft and uses this sail. To me, that sail represents reliance upon the grace of God. It's the only way to get off the island, to get out of an addiction, is with the grace of God. So we have to use the oars too, though. What do those oars symbolize for me are 2 powers, intellect and will, 2 powers of our soul that we conquer and succeed in so many areas of our life, achieve greatness. Many times people addicted to things, substances, or whatever it is, they're successful in all these areas of their life except this. And they're scratching their head. They're so puzzled by this, they can't break free just with these oars. So we can marshal all the arguments we want and form a profound resolve and try to get out there off the island past those breakers, and we get crushed time and again. Why? Because addicts have found out that lack of power was our dilemma. That when the phenomenon of craving hits the brain, whatever addiction you want to talk about, when a person who's addicted to something experiences the phenomenon of craving, all your rational arguments when you were sober-minded and thinking sanely just evaporate. And you can't seem to summon into your brain with sufficient force why you shouldn't do this, that, or the other thing. Even the pain and suffering of the last relapse can't call it to consciousness into your brain with sufficient force. All your arguments kind of evaporate, and your will is just not strong enough. Your resolve weakens and you fall. This is what addicts have found time and again. Those 2 oars of intellect and will. Willpower and self-knowledge were totally inadequate. We lacked sufficient power. Lack of power, that was our dilemma, the alcoholics say. We had to find a power greater than ourselves if we were ever going to get off this island. They found that in the grace of God, an act of surrender. This is the crux. Tricky to get. Sometimes takes addicts a long time to get this because they keep trying to ply those oars. This is where it's tricky. We have to prepare for temptation by using those oars to a point. So we have to marshal all our arguments and get our conviction nice and strong and form our resolution. Gain knowledge. Exposing the lie of this thing and forming a picture of the good and wanting it, desiring freedom with all our heart. Seeing this vision of the freedom we long for. We have to make a robust effort with those oars to form this resolve and to marshal all our best arguments. But then here's the crux. This is what people find so hard, and this is the trickiest thing. When it comes to the phenomenon of craving, once the craving hits, You got to stow up the oars and hunker down and deploy the sail. It's the only way to survive the crux, the phenomenon of craving, those big waves that are bound to hit you if you're trying to withdraw from some activity, some vice. You get through the first couple waves, they get progressively bigger until you get these big ones. And what alcoholics found, and many people who've recovered, they stow up the oars at a certain point when you hit the phenomenon of craving, when that manifests and you have this, what they call a mental blank spot, where you can't reason clearly. You stow up the oars, hunker down, and deploy the sail. And that sail pops up in the movie. It's so beautiful. It he's going up a face of a wave as high as that wall. And you see him going up, and then at the very last, he deploys, and the sail pops up over the crest of the wave, and the offshore breeze fills it and pulls him up and over. What a great image of the grace of God. He just clung to that raft and deployed that sail. So how do we get that grace? Well, there's where we need to prepare as well. What I recommend for people is just take it one day at a time. That's what addicts have learned. Same thing our Lord said in the Gospels. Let the day's own trouble be sufficient for the day. You say, I'm going to get through one day without doing this, that, or the other thing. And you get down on your knees in the morning and say 10 Hail Marys in front of a statue of the Blessed Mother or a crucifix or whatever, begging God in desperation to give you this grace for that, just for that one day. Don't think beyond that. At lunchtime, do it again. And when you come home from work or school, do it again. And if you have any temptations during the day, say Hail Mary. All right, and pretty soon it's the end of the day, you're shutting the lights off, and you're like, I made it. And then the next day, do it again. Do the same exact thing, just for that one day. Next thing you know, you got 10 days. Next thing you know, you got 20, 30. And you've broken the back of the initial withdrawal phase, and then you get out into 50, 60, 90. Pretty soon you got a year, and you're healing on the inside. There is recovery. People have recovered from the most desperate addictions of all kinds with intense craving for whatever it is. And they've done it through these simple principles. They rode like crazy and stored up grace with their eyes awake. Like our Lord says, wants us to be watchful and awake for that temptation to come. Their eyes are in their head. They know it's coming. I know it's coming. I'm rowing like crazy. And then when it hits, you're ready. You're not standing there like a bowling pin for the devil to bowl a nice strike. You've prepared. All in. Half measures availed us nothing, they say in 12-step programs. Half measures availed us nothing. You've rowed for all you're worth. Now you stow up the oars when that wave crests, and you deploy the sail. It's worked for so countless many. All right, I just want to leave you with that message of hope, okay? The church needs to have that heart of mercy like our Lord. Merciful. Physicians. We got to hold the bucket for the world when they come in here to throw up. That's what I do in the confession. You know, we're ingesting toxic poisons. Mercy. If anybody ever wants to talk, you know how to get a hold of me. Call the parish office. I'd be glad to talk to anybody. And we're going to share out some resources in the flock note this week and make some things available, especially for families, to help them manage their households. I'll just close out with Hebrews here, chapter 12, verse 1. I like, because when you enter a 12-step program, you got to have hope. You see old-timers in there, and you hear their story, and they're like, man, their story's worse than mine. They had a lower bottom than I did, and they managed to get free of this thing. And it gives you hope when you see others have done it. There are countless examples of people who've overcome things and been worse off than we are, so it can be done. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, Let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us. God bless you.